Have you ever wondered what really happens when a rising superstar challenges the very fabric of the league that's supposed to celebrate him? Every so often, a player comes along who dominates from day one, smashing expectations and thrilling fans with every dribble. For a while, Luka Doncic seemed like that untouchable talent, someone who plays with audacity, confidence, and a flair that belongs on a highlight reel. But lately, a different story has been swirling beneath the surface. Instead of simply taking the NBA by storm, he's had to wrestle with forces beyond his opponents, namely the referees and the persistent whispers of behind-the-scenes friction that refuse to die down. The result is a narrative that goes far beyond basic officiating mistakes, circling into questions of fairness, conspiracy, and whether the league itself is sending Luka Doncic a message. It's a saga that has sparked debate across social media, commentary panels, and locker room whispers, leaving fans to wonder if they're witnessing a personal vendetta or a string of coincidences that simply refuse to end. But that's not all. Luka's origin story is well known. Long before he set foot in an NBA arena, he was tearing up the courts in Europe. As a teenager, he outsmarted grown men in the EuroLeague, claiming MVP honors and championships with Real Madrid. By the time he landed in Dallas, many believed he was the next face of the NBA, a forward-thinking prodigy with the composure of a seasoned veteran. Right from his rookie year, he dazzled watchers with step-back threes, improbable passes, and a fearlessness that endeared him to fans worldwide. Yet, almost as soon as he started dropping triple-doubles, there were glimpses of something else simmering in the background. Luka was emotional on the court, outspoken about what he believed to be unfair calls. He didn't shy away from confronting referees who he felt were missing contact or handing out questionable fouls. At first, onlookers shrugged it off. Star players always have a bit of friction with officiating. But with Luka, it kept escalating, and each season, the tension became more and more obvious. The bigger the spotlight shone on Luka, the more frequent his altercations with refs seemed to become. He picked up technical fouls at an alarming rate, often rolling his eyes at referees, throwing his arms up in exasperation, or shooting them looks of disbelief. Some fans chalked it up to typical superstar frustration. After all, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and other marquee names had their fair share of run-ins over the years. However, fans who watched every Mavericks game started noticing a peculiar pattern. Calls that favored him one night would go missing the next. One official might let him play physically, while another would hand out a whistle the second he brushed against an opponent. Meanwhile, star scorers on rival teams seemed to enjoy a more generous whistle. This wasn't just frustrating for Luka, it was a glaring inconsistency that, over time, began to feel like a systematic pattern. Something that transcended the usual random mistakes officials make. It gets even crazier. Early in his career, there were a few high-profile moments that underscored Luka's frustration. One game in his sophomore season saw him whistled for multiple ticky-tack fouls in crunch time, effectively neutralizing his late-game heroics. Soon after, clips of him driving to the basket, absorbing clear contact, and getting zero calls went viral. Fans on social media asked why this young phenom, who was fast becoming the face of a global fanbase, appeared to be officiated more harshly than established headliners. But people inside league circles cautioned that this phenomenon was nothing new. Many rookies and second-year players don't get star calls. Yet, at the same time, Luka wasn't just any rookie. He put up superstar numbers from the moment he hit the floor, and he carried the Mavericks on his shoulders. Shouldn't the officiating reflect the reality that he was already among the NBA's elite? As the seasons passed, the frustration seeped deeper. It became less about a handful of calls and more about a constant battle that overshadowed entire stretches of basketball. In crucial moments, games that the Mavericks desperately needed sometimes hinged on an inexplicable whistle. Often, Luka found himself heading to the bench in foul trouble for contact that seemed, at best, minimal, especially when measured against the physical style of other star players who rarely faced the same scrutiny. Meanwhile, the calls he felt he deserved while on offense never seemed to arrive. These moments piled up until it no longer felt like random chance. Some fans began wondering if the league or its officials had personal grievances against him. Analysts on TV stepped in, pointing out how Luka's open complaining might have rubbed some referees the wrong way. Basketball is emotional after all, and referees are only human. But should human bias have such a visible and repeated effect on a team's outcomes? Wait until you hear the next part. Strange as these referee clashes might be, they're not the only story swirling around Luka Doncic. Behind the scenes, rumors have emerged that maybe his off-court routines and personal habits also contribute to the friction. Whispers of subpar off-season conditioning have dogged him for years. Skeptics argue that upon returning from each break, he isn't as physically prepared as he should be, prompting concern from the Mavericks leadership. Tension reportedly brewed between him and former teammate Kristaps Porzingis, who was once billed as the perfect co-star. Some said the duo never fully clicked, partly because of how the offense revolved heavily around Luka's usage. Others pointed to friction in the locker room. Conversations that implied Luka's frustration with officiating spilled over and colored the entire team's attitude. Could these behind-the-scenes rumors be fueling an image problem that influences how officials treat him? Yet there's another twist to this story. The speculation doesn't stop there. After all, the NBA is an entertainment giant built on star narratives, brand deals, and constant headlines. Gossip about how certain players get star treatment has always floated around, and skeptics now wonder if officials are deliberately refusing to give Luka that treatment as a form of punishment. On TV segments, commentators have questioned whether the referee's supposed job of managing the game has bled too far into managing personal grudges. A missed call here or a questionable whistle there doesn't always swing an entire game's result. But repeated enough times, especially in the fourth quarter or overtime, it can tip the balance in the other team's favor. Confronted with this repeated pattern, it's hard not to ask if the referees have singled out Luka as an example. Tone down the outbursts or get no mercy from us. On top of that, stories persist about how management within the Mavericks organization occasionally bristles at Luka's emotional style. Coaches and teammates respect his talent, but some observers sense that the constant back and forth with officials can shift the mood on the bench. One rumor circulating was that in the locker room, certain players felt overshadowed by his star presence and overshadowed by the drama that accompanies him. Then again, it's equally likely that the tension is normal for a team that's struggling to meet lofty expectations. When frustrations mount, every small glitch, like a referee's whistle or a disappointed star's scowl, gets magnified. Even so, the repeated controversies around officiating feed a storyline that is larger than the game itself. It's become a magnet for conspiracy theorists who say Luka's outspokenness might be blacklisting him from the same cozy officiating norms that superstars like LeBron or Steph enjoy. But the real shocker is still on the way. Even those who don't buy into conspiracies have to concede that Luka isn't getting the same benefit of the doubt that star peers enjoy. Watch enough of his possessions, and you'll see him hammered on the arm, whacked on the wrist, or bumped off his path with no whistle in sight. Then, on the other end, he'll get called for an innocuous hand check that pales in comparison. Over time, such discrepancies drastically affect game results. A handful of questionable fouls can push a close contest out of reach. The mental toll on a passionate competitor can be just as destructive as any strategic drawback. Why keep driving into the lane if you end up with nothing but bruises and a turnover? And it gets even more intriguing. Some fans might recall the times when other stars, like James Harden, triggered debates about how they manipulate referees. However, Harden's style often benefited from how calls were made, whereas Luka's predicament is the opposite. The difference in these two extremes is noteworthy. For better or worse, big names often shape the officiating rulebook, and if Luka continues to evolve into one of the biggest draws in global basketball, the league might be forced to confront and rectify its treatment of him. After particularly rough nights, he maintains a careful facade in post-game conferences, letting a single cryptic statement speak volumes. "I'm not gonna say anything, but I think everybody saw it," he'll remark, exhaling as if resisting the urge to spell out the injustice. Analysts have read into that sigh, that hesitation, seeing it as an unspoken protest. Maybe his approach is the smart one. Rather than collecting fines or further tarnishing relationships with referees, he's allowing the evidence to pile up. Game after game, more footage emerges of bizarre technicals, missed calls, and referees scolding him for behavior that other superstars get away with. Eventually, the weight of that evidence may become impossible to dismiss. In the end, it's no longer about whether Luka Doncic is a generational talent. That question was answered years ago. This is about the day-to-day battle he wages in a league that should be celebrating his brilliance. For reasons unclear, he's not receiving the same whistle as his peers. Whether it's an unspoken vendetta or a symptom of his outspoken style is up for debate. But unless something changes, the frustration will continue mounting. Fans have grown tired of officiating dramas overshadowing the game, and they aren't shy about voicing it on social media or booing referees in the arena. It's a storyline that the NBA can't continue to brush aside without risk of eroding trust. At this point, every fan and analyst sees what's happening. It's no secret that Luka Doncic feels singled out. whether intentionally or subconsciously. The next chapter in this battle hinges on how much the NBA values transparency and fairness for one of its biggest draws. If nothing changes, Luka might face an uphill fight for the rest of his career, constantly forced to juggle not just the defense in front of him, but the unpredictability of the referees. But if he continues to speak through his performances, bulldozing through opponents despite questionable whistles, the league may find it impossible to deny him the respect he deserves. One thing is certain: Luka Doncic is not one to back down. He plays with an unyielding passion, fights for his teammates, and calls out injustice whenever it rears its head. That resolve is precisely why fans gravitate to him, and also why many officials seem irked by him. It's a double-edged sword that might define the next phase of his career. In the end, true superstars force the league to adapt. Michael Jordan did. LeBron James did. Stephen Curry did. Sooner or later, Luka Doncic will too. The only question is how rough the road will be before the NBA acknowledges that consistency is essential for its integrity, and that a generational player like Luka deserves a level playing field. The NBA thrives on drama and larger-than-life personalities, and Luka Doncic embodies both. The question is whether the league will let him shine the way other superstars do, or keep him tangled in controversy. If there's any silver lining, it's that Luka has turned these frustrating calls into fuel. He's playing angry, playing inspired, and letting his performances do the talking more than ever. No matter what obstacles the referees place in front of him, he's shown time and again that his talent transcends petty disputes. It might just be a matter of time before the system rebalances itself around his undeniable brilliance. For now, the rest of us watch with bated breath, wondering if each new game will bring another questionable whistle, or the moment Luka is finally treated like the superstar he already is. Thank you so much for watching till the very end. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you never miss our next upload.